When I moved to the suburbs, I was chasing peace. No more city sirens at 3 a.m. No more drunk college kids bellowing outside my window on Tuesday nights. And best of all, no HOA. That was a selling point, by the way. The realtor practically whispered it to me, like it was a sacred secret. And there's no homeowners association. It sounded like freedom. I bought a modest 2-bedroom with a beautiful backyard, clean, quiet, and with a pool that looked like it belonged on a real estate flyer. My plan was simple: mind my business, enjoy some weekend grilling, maybe make a few nodding relationships with the neighbors, and spend my summers floating around in that sparkling water like a retired millionaire. For a while, things were going exactly according to plan. The neighborhood was quiet. The guy across the street waved once. The older couple next door dropped off a small pie and never came back again, bless them. I was living the suburban dream. Then weird stuff started happening. At first, it was subtle. A towel, not mine, hanging on the back of one of the patio chairs. A half-empty water bottle near the deep end. A pool noodle that had definitely not been there the day before. I chalked it up to my own forgetfulness. Maybe I'd left the towel out. Maybe a gust of wind carried in someone's trash. It was the suburbs, after all. Maybe this kind of thing just happened. But then came the footprints. Wet, bare footprints. Leading from the pool to the edge of my patio and vanishing into the grass like a budget horror movie. Still, I didn't panic. Maybe the landscaper had stepped too close to the edge. Maybe I was being paranoid. That all changed on a Wednesday. I'd left work early, blessing in disguise, really. Pulled into my driveway. Everything looked normal. But as I got out of my car, I heard it, splashing. Someone was in the pool. Now, I didn't have a family. No roommates. No pets capable of synchronized swimming. My house is fully fenced, gate locked. So yeah, alarm bells. I walked around the side of the house, carefully peeking around the corner, and nearly choked on my own breath. There, floating on a massive pink flamingo float like she was queen of the backyard, was a woman I had never seen before in my life. Mid-40s, platinum bob haircut, sunglasses, one of those insulated tumblers in hand. She looked completely at home. I stood there, blinking in disbelief. Then I finally found my voice. "Excuse me, what the hell are you doing?" She lazily pushed her sunglasses up and blinked at me like I was the intruder. "Oh hey, didn't expect you home this early," she said, like we were roommates or something. "You know this is my house, right?" I said slowly. She gave a dismissive shrug. "It's so hot today. I figured you wouldn't mind. You weren't using it." I gawked at her. "So you just climbed my fence and decided to take a dip?" "I didn't climb anything," she said, scoffing. "Your side gate wasn't locked. And besides, it's just a pool. You have plenty of space. Why be so selfish?" Now, I should have flipped out. Yelled. Called the cops. But I was so thrown off by the absurdity of it all, I just stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "I'm going to need you to leave," I finally said. She huffed, started paddling her float toward the edge. "God, fine. Don't have to be such a psycho about it." I watched as she climbed out, wrapped herself in her towel like I had violated her privacy, and strutted back toward the fence. She didn't even look embarrassed, just annoyed. I followed her to the gate and locked it behind her as she stepped through. I stared as she marched across the lawn back to her house, 2 doors down. That's when I learned her name, because as she stomped up her driveway, she shouted back, "You'll regret this. Just wait." The guy next door, quiet, mid-50s, lawn always trimmed to military precision, popped his head over the fence and said, "Ah, you've met Karen." After that first encounter, I figured that was the end of it. I'd caught her, embarrassed her, locked the gate. Simple. Case closed. I underestimated 2 things. 1. Karen had 0 shame. 2. Karen doesn't lose gracefully. About 4 days later, Saturday afternoon, I was getting ready to mow the lawn when I glanced out the back window. There, standing in her flip-flops and leopard print swimsuit, was Karen, again, walking straight across my backyard like she owned the damn deed. This time, I beat her to the pool. I stormed out the back door before she could take off her cover-up. "Karen, are you serious?" She blinked at me, like I was the rude one for interrupting her trespassing. "Oh, what now?" she sighed. "It's hot. I just figured." "Nope," I said. "Stop. We're not doing this again. She crossed her arms and gave me that squinty Karen glare, the one that usually precedes a complaint to the manager. You know, it's really unfriendly of you to hoard resources like this. It's my pool on my property, not a public resource. This is not a community splash pad. Karen muttered something under her breath that sounded like selfish little man and stomped back out the gate. As she left, she hissed, "You'll pay for this. Trust me." I rubbed my temples. What is this, a sitcom? 10 minutes later, I got my answer. Flashing blue and red lights lit up my front yard like a Christmas tree. I stepped outside just in time to see Karen dramatically waving down a patrol car like she was signaling an aircraft carrier. That's him. That's the man who assaulted me. I blinked. You called the cops? Karen spun to face me, instantly turning up the tears. Officers. He screamed at me. He threatened me. I was terrified. She actually dabbed at the corners of her dry eyes like she was auditioning for a role in Law and Order, HOA Victims Unit. The two officers looked at me. I looked at them. Then I sighed, pulled out my phone. I thought this might happen, I said, and pulled up my security cam app. I handed the phone to the first officer. The footage was crystal clear. Karen entering through my side gate. Karen tossing her towel on my patio chair like she was checking into a resort. Karen getting confronted by me, politely but firmly, and then muttering threats as she left. The officer looked up at her. "Ma'am, did you tell us this man assaulted you?" Karen's confident mask cracked just a little. "Well, I mean, he was aggressive." The second officer raised an eyebrow. "Because from this footage, it looks like you trespassed." Again, Karen's lips tightened. "That video could be doctored. It's time-stamped, synced to 911 call records, and stored on a cloud server," I replied. "I can email it to your department if you'd like." Now it was really quiet. The first officer turned to Karen, tone now very official. "Ma'am, do you understand that filing a false report is a crime? And that trespassing is also illegal?" Karen just stared at him. For a second, I actually thought she might apologize. Nope. Instead, she spun and ran, full speed, back into her house and slammed the door like a toddler who didn't get their Happy Meal toy. One officer shook his head. "If she steps foot on your property again, call us immediately. Next time, she's not getting a warning." I nodded. "Oh, don't worry. Next time, she's gonna regret it." Because now I understood something crucial. Karen wasn't going to stop just because the law said so. She was going to stop when it got too embarrassing to continue, which meant it was time for a little suburban innovation. After the cop fiasco, I realized something important. Logic doesn't work on Karens. You can hit them with facts, laws, even recorded evidence, and they'll still storm off convinced they're the victim. So I gave up on reasoning, and I started planning. You see, while Karen might ignore boundaries, she did respond to embarrassment. Her reaction when the cops confronted her with video proof? That little crack in her smug facade? That was the first time I saw doubt in her eyes. So I built on it. First, I upgraded my security system. More cameras, better angles, motion sensors with alerts pinged straight to my phone. If a squirrel so much as sneezed on my lawn, I'd know about it. Then came the real stroke of brilliance, the Karen Detector. That's what I named it in my head. It was a sprinkler system, but not just any sprinkler system. I rigged it to trigger only when someone crossed my backyard fence line. And the best part? I filled it with green dye. Non-toxic, completely safe, used in golf course ponds and fountains to make the water look pristine. It wouldn't hurt anyone, but it would stain skin and clothes just enough to leave a mark. A very noticeable one. And if you happened to sneak into my yard and try to cannonball into a stranger's pool, well, that was your green-tinted problem. I tested the whole setup, timed sprinklers, motion sensitivity, coverage range. It was perfect. Invisible until it wasn't. Now all I needed to do was wait. And sure enough, the suburbs didn't disappoint. About a week later, I was driving home from the grocery store when I got the notification on my phone. Motion detected, backyard perimeter triggered. I didn't even hesitate. I hit the gas and booked it home. As I turned onto my street, I could already hear the screaming. And not just any screaming. The shrill, indignant shrieking of someone who just realized they made a very public mistake. There she was, Karen, in all her furious, fluorescent glory. She was spinning around in the middle of my backyard, drenched from head to toe in green-tinted water. Her skin was stained a vibrant, unmistakable shade of lime, and her bleach-blonde bob was now streaked with what could only be described as radioactive seaweed. It was beautiful. She saw me pull up and charge toward the fence. "You," she screamed, pointing a shaking, green finger. "You attacked me." I stepped out of the car slowly, arms crossed, doing my best not to burst out laughing. "You snuck into my yard again, and now you're mad you got caught." Karen was practically foaming at the mouth. You mocked me. You tried to poison me." "Poison?" I repeated. "Karen, that's pond dye. You'll be back to your normal color in, like, 3 days. Maybe 4. She stomped her foot. "And let me tell you, a grown woman throwing a tantrum while looking like a toxic frog is a sight you never forget." "I'm calling the police," she howled. I smiled, leaned against my car, and said the line I'd been waiting weeks to deliver. "No need, Karen. I already did." Her mouth fell open. And right on cue, sirens. The same 2 cops from before rolled up, windows down, wearing the exact expressions of men who had been through this rodeo before and deeply regretted buying tickets. They parked, got out. Karen ran to them, soaking wet, dye still dripping from her elbows. "Officers. He assaulted me. He set traps. This is a hate crime." One of the officers blinked. "Ma'am, you're green. He did this to me." The other officer sighed and turned to me. "You got the footage again?" I nodded and held up my phone like I was presenting Exhibit A in the trial of the century. They watched. Karen trespassing. Karen creeping through the side gate. Karen stepping directly into the sprinkler zone and triggering her glorious green transformation. The officer didn't say anything for a long time. Then he turned to her, deadpan. "Ma'am, you realize this is the 2nd time we've been called out here?" "It's his fault." "No, ma'am," he said, shaking his head. "This is trespassing and a false report." Again, Karen stared. I think she thought the dye would win her some sympathy. Instead, it made her look like a villain from a low-budget superhero movie. "Ma'am," the second officer said, already pulling out cuffs, "you're coming with us." "What?" And just like that, Karen was arrested, again, covered in green dye, yelling about conspiracies, and going viral. And she wasn't wrong about that last part. Because, she went viral. The moment the patrol car rolled away with a still screaming, green-skinned Karen in the back seat, it was like the entire neighborhood exhaled at once. First, a few blinds cracked open. Then porch doors swung out. By the time I made it to my front steps, it was a full-on suburban flash mob. Old Mr. Dempsey from across the street wandered out in his bathrobe with a coffee in hand. "Well, damn," he muttered, staring at the now empty squad car space. "Didn't think anyone would actually do something about her." "She really get arrested?" someone else asked. I nodded. "Second time in real. This time, she came pre-marinated in lawn dye." Laughter erupted. Loud, genuine, relieved. Because apparently, Karen had been a problem for everyone. "She threatened to report me for having a witchy Halloween display," said the lady from the corner house. "She wrote me a fake citation for having a bird bath," muttered a guy who looked like he hadn't laughed in 6 months. "She told my kid their chalk drawings were graffiti," another neighbor added, rolling her eyes. "I'd unleashed something bigger than justice. I'd triggered community catharsis." Someone shouted from across the street. "Hey, you're that guy with the green sprinkler trap, right?" I gave a little wave. "Guilty." Another voice chimed in. "Man, you're a legend. You've got the whole block talking now yet. We've been dealing with Karen for years." And then someone, don't know who, but they deserve an award, said, "We should call him the landscaping man." And just like that, it stuck. Over the next 24 hours, things escalated in the most satisfying way possible. The footage, oh yes, I uploaded it, blew up in the local Facebook group. A few people even asked if they could repost it on Reddit. Within hours, memes started popping up. Karen in the pool. Karen sprinting out of the dye zone like she was escaping a chemical plant. Karen getting cuffed, still slightly glowing. Someone photoshopped her into a Marvel poster. The Green Goblin, Suburban Menace. I cried laughing. Even better? Karen didn't come home for 3 days. Then, on the fourth, a moving truck pulled up. And there she was, stomping around her yard barking at the movers, still stained faintly green around the ankles. She wouldn't even look in my direction. Didn't stop me from waving. She glared like she wanted to hex me through the fence. By nightfall, she was gone. Her house sat dark for 2 weeks before a nice young couple moved in. On day 1, they knocked on my door to say hi. The first words out of the husband's mouth? So we heard about the sprinkler system. To celebrate Karen's departure, my neighbors threw a literal Karen's Gone block party. There were burgers, beers, and someone brought a cake shaped like a pool float. Naturally, they made me grill master. Naturally, someone brought a projector and screened all the camera footage on the side of my garage. When it got to the part where she got sprayed by the sprinklers, the crowd roared. "We need to make this an annual holiday," someone joked. "I vote we call it Karen Independence Day," another guy said. I raised my beer. To the day the HOA never formed, and the Karen that couldn't. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about setting a boundary, making it crystal clear that suburban peace isn't something you get by stomping on other people's lawns, literally or metaphorically. And yeah, maybe it helped that she looked like the Grinch's sweaty cousin by the end of it. It's wild how quiet a neighborhood gets after its loudest problem vanishes. The days after Karen's move out felt peaceful. It was so quiet, in fact, that I started to forget what chaos even sounded like. A week later, a group of kids walked past my driveway. One of them whispered, "That's him, the landscaping man." I wasn't sure whether to be embarrassed or proud. Honestly, bit of both. But the best part? People started asking for help. Not with setting dye traps, thankfully, but with standing up to bullies. A woman 2 blocks over wanted help drafting a cease and desist to a neighbor who kept putting trash in her bin. A guy with an overgrown tree was afraid the neighbor would retaliate if he trimmed it. So I helped him check the local codes and write a polite but firm notice. I wasn't just landscaping man. I was unofficially dubbed the suburban defense consultant. All because of one very entitled woman and her irrational need to swim in someone else's pool. Now, things are great. The neighborhood has a stronger sense of community. People talk more, help each other, stand up when someone oversteps. We even created a little WhatsApp group where folks can share tips or flag weird behavior, mostly for laughs, sometimes for real. As for Karen, last I heard, she moved to a gated neighborhood about 10 miles away. Poor souls. I sincerely hope their gates are high and their sprinklers unflavored. And yes, every now and then I still check my security system. Not because I expect her back, but because, well, old habits die hard. The Karen Detector remains in place. A few curious raccoons have gotten the green treatment, but no humans since the incident. Still, the sprinkler heads gleam with potential. Like a silent warning, trespass here, and you might just become an internet legend. Oh, and about the lawn, let's just say I leaned into the branding. A custom wooden sign now hangs just inside the gate. Landscaping man, defender of turf and justice. It started as a joke, but people love it. I've gotten everything from gift cards to garden gnomes from amused neighbors. One gnome's holding a tiny clipboard labeled "Not HOA approved." I call him Lil Karen. So if anyone's wondering what happened to the woman who thought she could treat my pool like a public park, let's just say she got what was coming to her. And if she, or anyone else, tries it again, well, the grass is still green. The dye is still loaded, and the cameras are always rolling. Long live the suburbs, and stay off my lawn. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.